So we're in the book of yoga. We completed the first canto, and last week we looked at the first part of Canto 2, the parable of the search for the soul. The first canto told us about Savitri's happiness at being united with Shraddhavan, but then of the ordeal of knowing that he must die. And when the rainy season comes, she realizes they have only a year together and that year is passing, and then grief and fear come to her. But she can't share that with anybody. She can't show her grief and her fear. She just has to go on as if everything is all right. But in the night, she sits awake when Shraddhavan is sleeping. And in that dark night, at the end of the rainy season, a voice comes to her and tells her that she has to arise and vanquish time and death. But Savitri's human heart is reluctant, it resists. It says, why do I have to do this? But eventually that voice convinces her, and her soul answers and says, command, for I am here to do thy will. So I'm going to read on from there, from line 86. First of all, what does the voice tell her? The voice replied, remember why thou camest. Find out thy soul. Recover thy hid self. In silence, seek God's meaning in thy depths. Then mortal nature change to the divine. Open God's door. Enter into his trance. Cast thought from thee, that nimble ape of light. In his tremendous hush, stilling thy brain, his vast truth wake within, and know and see. Cast from thee sense that veils thy spirit's sight. In the enormous emptiness of thy mind, thou shalt see the Eternal's body in the world. Know him in every voice heard by thy soul. In the world's contacts, meet his single touch. All things shall fold thee into his embrace. Conquer thy heart's throbs. Let thy heart beat in God. Thy nature shall be the engine of his works. Thy voice shall house the mightiness of his word. Thou then shalt thou harbor my force and conquer death. Then Savitri by her doomed husband sat, still rigid in her golden motionless pose, a statue of the fire of the inner sun. In the black night, the wrath of storm swept by, the thunder crashed above her, the rain hissed, its million footsteps pattered on the roof. Impassive mid the movement and the cry, witness of the thoughts of mind, the moods of life, she looked into herself and sought for her soul. Dhanalakshmi? Yes. You will begin.
The voice replied, remember why thou camest. Find out thy soul, recover thy hid self. In silence, seek God's meaning in thy depths. Then mortal nature change to the divine.
Yes. So this is the command of that highest part of Savitri's being, coming to her human part and telling her that it is time to wake up and prepare yourself for this mission that you have come for. And it says, remember why thou camest. Remember why you came, why you left your wonderful heavens and came here to live as a human being on earth. Remember why you came. And in a way, that's, of course, this is the command of the higher being to Savitri, but it's a command to all of us. We should all of us be trying to remember why we are here and where we have come from. We should be trying to find out our soul and to find back our true self, which is hidden to us at the moment. The voice tells her, recover thy hid self. Find back that self, your true self, which is hidden from your surface consciousness. It tells her that to do that, she needs to be in silence. She has to look into her silent depths. In silence, seek God's meaning in thy depths, in the deep parts of yourself. We are always living on the surface. We don't often go into those deeper parts. But we should practice going deeper and deeper and deeper until we can come in touch with our hid self and discover what is God's meaning, what is God's purpose. He has a different purpose for each of us. Each of us has a unique mission to fulfill. We are here for something. We came for something. So in silence we can look within and find out why we are here. And when we have found out what is God's meaning in our depths, then we'll be able to change this mortal nature, this ordinary human nature. We'll be able to change it into the divine nature. Tamara, you will read the next lines.
Open doors don't enter into his hands. Once thought from that temple of light. In his tremendous hush stilling the bride. His was stripped back between unknown unseen.
Yes. So how is she going to do that, to find God's meaning in her depths? The voice tells her you have to open the door, and you have to enter into that trance state. You have to get rid of thought. We are always focused in our surface mind. We are dominated by thought. But the voice tells her that this thinking that's going on all the time, it's just a nimble ape. It's a monkey who's always leaping about. It carries some light. Until we have found God's meaning in our depths, that nimble ape is the best light that we have. But if we really want to go into the silence and open God's door, we have to learn to put that thought at a distance. Cast thought from thee, that nimble ape of light. And in the hush that comes when the thought has stopped, in that divine hush, let the brain stop working. Even if we're not having any active thoughts, there's all kinds of currents, nervous, active movements going on in the brain. And when we try to silence our mind, we become aware of all that activity. So that too has to fall silent, stilling that brain. The physical brain has to accept to be still, quiet, unmoving. Then the vast truth of the divine will wake up, and you will be able to know. Not to know the way we know now, when we have sense impressions and they come into our brain and we interpret them, but really to know, to have knowledge and to have vision, to be able to see how things really are. So that's one barrier which is there. Then there's another barrier. Oma, will you read?
Cast from the sense that breaks the sweet sight in the enormous emptiness of thy mind, thou shalt see the eternal glory in the world. Know him in every voice heard by thy soul. In the world's contacts, meet his silvery touch, all things shall fall deep into his embrace.
Yes. Last time we talked about these words, no? Thee and thou and thy. The first person singular. So, cast thought from thee. But the other thing that we have to silence is the sense. If you try to silence your mind, you will notice that all the sense impressions become very noticeable. What you hear, what you feel, everything. When we are thinking, we may not pay much attention to those things. But when the thought falls silent, then the sense impressions become very dominant. That sense, all those sense impressions that are linking us to the outside world, are veiling, covering up the power of vision that belongs to our spirit, to our true self. They veil thy spirit's sight. No? So only when all those sense impressions also have been pushed to a distance, then you will feel the enormous emptiness of thy mind. When the mind becomes empty, then you will be able to see. That's what it said, no? You'll be able to see the Eternal's body in the world, to see the world inhabited by the divine presence. See that all these material things form the body of the Eternal. And you will be able to know and hear the Eternal speaking to you in every voice that your soul hears. You will be able to feel the embrace of the Eternal in all the world's contacts, everything that touches you and that you touch, you will feel that it's the Lord who is touching you. In the world's contacts, meet his single touch. All things, everything that's in the world, will fold you into his embrace, the embrace of the divine. If we had this experience and could live in this consciousness, then we'd be yogis. No? We would be seeing and experiencing the world very, very differently from the way we do now. We would be experiencing it from our soul, not from our surface personality. Yes?
This voice of the capital letter belongs to your soul or God?
It says at the beginning, it says that a summons from her being's summit came. So your summit is the very highest level of your own being. And then on this page, there's a power within her that answers to that voice, and it says, I am thy portion here, charged with thy work. This is, I think you can say, her individual soul, her psychic being. It says a power within her answered that still voice, and it says, I'm your portion here, I'm doing your work here, and you are myself seated forever above. So here within us, there's our psychic being, but it's connected with our true eternal self above. Yeah? So that is the voice which is speaking to her and reminding her that she has come into the human world for a purpose. And in order to fulfill that mission, she has to find her individual soul. And that's the first part of Savitri's yoga. We'll be following the course of Savitri's yoga for quite some weeks and months now. This is where it's beginning, with this summons from above. So what is the last sentence that this voice speaks to her, Alice?
Conquer thy heart's throbs. Let thy heart beat in God. Thy nature shall be the engine of his works. Thy voice shall house the mightiness of his word. Then shalt thou harbor my force and conquer death.
Yes. So to conquer, it means to win a victory. If you're in a fight, in a battle, you have to win, you have to conquer. So the voice tells her one thing that she has to overcome, she has to win a victory over, is the throbs of her heart. Of course, the throbs of our heart, in a physical sense, that's what keeps us, our body, our physical body alive. No? It keeps the blood circulating and the oxygen circulating. But we also associate the heart, it's with the seat of our emotions, our feelings. And that is Savitri's problem at the moment. She's feeling all this grief and pain and fear, all this, and this passionate need to be with Shraddhavan all the time. So the voice tells her, you have to become the master of your emotions, and you should feel that your heart is beating within the divine. When you have done all this, your human nature will be like the engine driving his works. What the divine wants to do in the world, you will be the motive force that's getting that work done. And your voice will house the mightiness of his word. Savitri, of course, represents the power of the divine word. But this, now she's being told, you will be able to speak. You will be able to speak the divine truth. You will have all the power to say what is necessary. And that's what we see later on when there's this debate with death. Savitri has the power to say the right thing, to speak the truth that saves. So the voice from the summit of her very being says, then you will harbor my force. All that high force of the Supreme Mother, you will be able to hold it within you, and you will be able to conquer death, to overcome death. This is the promise that's made to her. Tatiana.
Then Savitri, by her own husband, said, still rigid in her golden, motionless pose, a statue of the fire in the sun.
Yes. So there she is. It's the night time. Satyavan is sleeping. She knows that he is doomed, that he has to die very soon. She sits there. She's been sitting and hearing this voice, having this dialogue. She continues to sit like that, rigid, unmoving, in her motionless pose, in the same position, without moving, absolutely concentrated. And again he says, golden. She is golden. Her color is golden. No? So she's like a golden statue, he had said before, no? A rigid golden statue of motionless trance. That's in line 16. So she's still like that, still rigid in her golden, motionless pose. She's sitting like a statue, but a statue of the fire, of the aspiration, the intensity, the burning light of the inner sun. That true, or that individual sun, the representative of the highest form of the sun, which we carry within us. Will you read it, please? Yes.
In the black night, the red of storm swept by. The thunder crashed above her. The rain hissed. Its million footsteps pattered on the roof.
Thank you. So Sri Aurobindo's reminding us, as he often does, what time of day it is and what season of the year. This is the ending of the rainy season. So it's in the black night. There's a storm outside, such as we had recently. The wrath. Wrath means anger. All the anger of the storm, the thunder and the lightning, it passes her by. The thunder crashes above her. The rain is coming down very strongly. It's making a tremendous noise, hissing. It's million footsteps, all the raindrops like tiny feet making a sound on the roof, on the keet roof. No? That's what's going on around her. But she is concentrated, motionless. She's not paying any attention to all that. She's concentrated within. Mahalingam.
Impassive with the movement and the cry. Witness all the thoughts of mind, the moods of life. Look into herself and sought for her soul.
Yes. So impassive. She's not reacting to the thunder and the lightning. One might be shocked and disturbed in one's meditation by those loud noises and the rain coming down. But she's impassive. She doesn't move. She's still very calm in the middle of this movement and this noise, this cry. She's witnessing, she's looking at the thoughts of the mind and the moods of life, the emotions and feelings that come. She's looking into herself and seeking for her soul. So here we have only looked at 1, 2, 3 and a few lines. This canto now goes on for many more pages. It goes on for 10 more pages. And this next part, I think it's 2 or 3 sections, two longish sections. It's a part of the poem which often we don't pay much attention to it. The next canto is about the entry into the inner countries, and that's very, very interesting how Savitri starts to explore her own being, first the subtle physical, and then the vital, the mental, and then even deeper. And then she has other experiences on this search for her soul. She doesn't have the experience of the finding of the soul until we come to Canto 5. But before all that starts, she has a dream or a vision here at the very beginning of her yoga, her process of inner self-exploration. It's a dream disclosed to her the cosmic past. She sees the whole history of the universe. So we'll read a little bit about that today. We'll see how far we can go. Gumsun, would you read?
A dream disclosed to her the cosmic past, the great sea and the mystic origins, the shadowy beginnings of a world of fate, a lamp of simple lightning hidden truth. Imagine to her the world's significance.
Yes. So this is a kind of gift that is given to her. A dream revealed to her the cosmic past, the past of the universe, of the manifestation. She sees the crypt seed. Well, we all know what a seed is, no? As a seed of a plant, it will grow. This word crypt is not so familiar. A crypt is a deep, secret place. And it's also often a sacred place. It's a place in the foundations of a church or a temple where perhaps some relics are there. Something is kept there which has power. So the huge church may be built on top, but the seat of its power is hidden in the foundations, in the crypt. And the word also has the meaning of mysterious. There are people who love to do crossword puzzles. And if they are very good at crossword puzzles, then they will choose to do cryptic crossword puzzles, ones that are very, very difficult to solve because the clues that are given are in themselves puzzles. So if something is cryptic, it is mysterious, hidden. So all those suggestions are here in this expression, the crypt seed. There's a hidden, secret seed to the universe that's carrying a mystery.
The crypt saying is so much meaning in smaller, it's also said crypt saying. No?
A cryptic saying. Yes.
A
computer codes also.
You encrypt things, you make them difficult to decipher. Yes. So she's allowed to see that seed. She's allowed to see the origins, the mystic origins of the universe, the shadowy beginnings of world fate. Fate is what has to happen. It's fixed. But it has to happen because of something that happened in the very beginning. The physicists tell us that all the rules of matter, all the laws of matter, are determined by what happened at the moment of the Big Bang. And it's true on the subtle levels as well, that everything that is unrolling in space and time is determined, is fated by that crypt seed and the mystic origins. They express themselves in the shadowy beginnings of world fate. So this knowledge is given to her in the form of a lamp, a light in the darkness, a lamp of symbol. Things are not shown to her in their essence, but in symbolic form. This lamp of symbol lights up for her truths that are hidden, and it gives her an image or a series of pictures that reveal the significance of this world, this material universe that we live in. You'll read? Yes.
In the indeterminate formlessness of self, creation took its first mysterious stage. It made the body shape a house of soul, and matter learned to think and person grew. She saw space peopled with the seeds of life, and saw the human creature born in time.
Yes. So she's seeing the whole history of the universe. From the beginning, in the beginning there was formlessness. Nothing has taken form. It's indeterminate. We can't see any distinct features, forms, shapes, movements. And that indeterminate formlessness is actually a state of existence, of consciousness. It's the indeterminate formlessness of the one self from which all this universe has emerged. So the first steps were taken in that indeterminate formlessness. The work of creation took its first mysterious steps. And that creative power, it made the body shape, the forms, the outer forms, a house, a place where soul can live. And because soul can live in matter, then matter can learn to think, can learn to live first, and then it can learn to think. And because it's inhabited by soul, this physical form with its living force and its power of thought becomes a person, a distinct personality. We were talking about it yesterday as we read the Life Divine. No? How do people become so different from each other? It's because of the crypt seed which is within them. No? So she saw this process by which the self spread out as space gets filled, peopled with the seeds of life. And she saw further along in the evolutionary process the human creature being born in time. So this is just a short summary of the whole process. And now he's going to explain that process, that evolutionary process, in more detail. At the back, sir, would you like to read? Yes?
Thank you. At first appeared a dim, half-neutral type of being emerging out of infinite naught. A consciousness looked at the inconscient vast, and pleasure and pain started in the insensible void.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of things. There's that indeterminate formlessness. And the first thing that happens in that is a dim, half-neutral tide, some kind of movement of force. A tide suggests a sea, an ocean. An ocean doesn't really have a form. It's a tide of being, of existence, emerging out of infinite nothingness. Something comes that we feel, oh, it exists. And where that being appears, that tide of existence, then consciousness is also there. Wherever there is existence, there is also consciousness. So that consciousness looks at this vast, inconscient material universe. It perceives it in some way, not the way that we see it with our senses, but in some other more direct way to start with. And along with that, there's the expression in the creation of Ananda. Here it expresses itself as pleasure and pain. So in the very beginnings, there's this movement of attraction and repulsion, of liking and disliking. And that starts to form things. No? I don't know how to explain this except to say that it's poetry, and so it, like the crypt seed, it is something suggestive. It's neutral, doesn't have any qualities. Something is half neutral. It's almost neutral. Maybe there's some quality to it. At least there's the sense of existence is there. No? Joel.
All was the deed of a blind world energy. Unconscious of her own exploits, she worked, shaping a universe out of the inane.
Thank you. So everything that happens in this universe is done by a world energy, this form that the creative mother takes in the material universe. She takes the form of a blind world energy. We can say Prakriti if we want to put that label. Something that seems to be unconscious, that can't see what it's doing. It's just a force. Everything gets done by that force that works unconscious of what she's doing, unconscious of her own exploits. Exploits are great achievements, actually. That blind world force has done so much. She's created all the marvels of the many, many different forms of matter, and then even she's allowed life to emerge, mind to emerge. But she's not aware of that. What she's doing is she's shaping a universe, a cosmos, a harmonious whole where all the parts are interconnected. She's shaping that out of the inane. If we say that something or somebody is inane, we mean stupid, foolish, meaningless. Their behavior is incoherent, inane. If we look at the root of the word, it means without a soul, soulless. So at the beginning there seemed to be this indeterminate formlessness, this soullessness. She creates a universe where soul can emerge. We'll just read one more sentence. Sergei, would you like to read?
In her mental beings, she grew aware, a chaos of little sensibilities, gathered around a small ego's pinpoint head. In it a sentient creature found its voice. It moved and lived, breathing, thinking all.
Yes. So, how does that blind world energy begin to become conscious? She becomes conscious in these fragmentary beings, these little separated beings that emerge. A chaos of little sensibilities. Sensibilities, it's what you feel. Feelings. They are chaotic, but they somehow get organized around something, around a pinpoint ego, a tiny little point which is aware of those feelings. So on that basis, a sentient creature, a feeling, a creature that is aware through the senses, can find a base. That's its center. It's not just flowing in a sea. It is organized. There's a little pinpoint head there. So that around that, a sentient creature emerges, which can move, which can live, which can breathe, which can even think. It becomes a whole with qualities and capacities. It is miraculous. This is what the world energy has nursed out of that crypt seed of the beginning. So shall we go back to where we started, to line 86, and we can read these lines together. The voice replied, "Remember why thou camest. Find out thy soul, recover thy hid self. In silence seek God's meaning in thy depths. Then mortal nature change to the divine. Open God's door. Enter into his trance. Cast thought from thee, that nimble ape of light. In his tremendous hush, stilling thy brain, his vast truth wake within, and know and see. Cast from thee sense that veils thy spirit's sight. In the enormous emptiness of thy mind, thou shalt see the Eternal's body in the world. Know him in every voice heard by thy soul. In the world's contacts meet his single touch. All things shall fold thee into his embrace. Conquer thy heart's throbs. Let thy heart beat in God. Thy nature shall be the engine of his works. Thy voice shall house the mightiness of his word. Then shalt thou harbour my force and conquer death. Then Savitri by her doomed husband sat, still rigid in her golden motionless pose, a statue of the fire of the inner sun. In the black night the wrath of storm swept by, the thunder crashed above her, the rain hissed, its million footsteps pattered on the roof. Impassive mid the movement and the cry, witness of the thoughts of mind, the moods of life, she looked into herself and sought for her soul. A dream disclosed to her the cosmic past, the crypt seed and the mystic origins, the shadowy beginnings of world fate. A lamp of symbol lighting hidden truth imaged to her the world's significance. In the indeterminate formlessness of self, creation took its first mysterious steps. It made the body's shape a house of soul, and matter learned to think, and person grew. She saw space peopled with the seeds of life, and saw the human creature born in time. At first appeared a dim, half-neutral tide of being emerging out of infinite naught. A consciousness looked at the inconscient vast, and pleasure and pain stirred in the insensible void. All was the deed of a blind world energy, Unconscious of her own exploits, she worked, shaping a universe out of the inane. In fragmentary beings she grew aware, a chaos of little sensibilities gathered round a small ego's pinpoint head. In it a sentient creature found its poise. It moved and lived, a breathing, thinking whole.